Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel Health and Wellness with Emma Mentel. So I thought I would just have a conversation today about the challenges that I hear my clients and some of my fasting participants are really struggling with, and a theme that I feel is very common, not just around the world, but especially at this time. It seems to be a main theme, and that is people feeling like they're not making progress with their food choices, or with their weight, or with their fasting routine. People feeling like they're getting stuck and not moving forward. And that is so common to find. I would love to hear where you are at. I know that I can completely relate to that. And I hope today's conversation and just a few of the pointers would resonate for you and perhaps be helpful to consider. Thank you for watching. Also, thank you for your subscriptions and for your comments. So let's first just have a look at one of my overall main approaches when it comes to restoring metabolic health. Metabolic health refers to insulin resistance, blood sugar control, inflammation, thyroid health, hypertension, also fatty liver, related to blood sugar that's not well managed, or insulin resistance, and then the weight gain associated with that, or the difficulty with weight loss. So when I look at the theme of metabolic health, those are the main things that I would want to consider. Obviously gut health is a part of that. Obviously, brain health is part of that, but metabolically, we want to establish if somebody is healthy, regardless of their weight. One of my main considerations as a blood test to establish the metabolic health of an individual would be to look at their fasting insulin. And I've done several videos about that as well, if you want to go through some of the older ones. So fasting insulin will give us an indication of how well somebody is metabolizing their glucose or their sugar, or will point us in the direction of how strict we should be when we want to limit carbohydrate intake and sugar intake. Fasting insulin is something that is separate to, but not, it's not unrelated to blood sugar management. And just to refresh your memory, if you haven't become familiar with this, or if you haven't watched any of the older videos about that, somebody might have, or you might have, completely normal blood sugar levels. Normal, the doctor will test your random blood sugar, blood glucose in his rooms, or you might go for a test somewhere and they would say, everything is fine, your blood glucose looks normal. When I look at fasting insulin, maybe for the same person, I would see that their fasting insulin is now elevated. So for that person, the insulin has to work much harder in order for them to have a normal or an optimal blood glucose. And this is where the term insulin resistance comes in, where insulin levels go up even when this person hasn't eaten a meal, and the random or the fasting blood sugar appears to be normal, but it is because the body is working so hard by producing excess insulin. How do we know if somebody is insulin resistant? There are a few quick other symptoms, physical signs that we can look at if we haven't done the blood test to confirm that. One of the first signs that we see is skin tags. Interesting. Part of the inflammatory condition that's happening in the body, you're going to produce skin tags. I actually noticed several skin tags a few years ago, and I didn't think it was related at all. Weight gain around the abdominal area and a lot of resistance to weight loss. So you might be exercising, you might be feeling like you're trying to lose weight, eating all the healthy stuff, but it seems to be very difficult for you to lose weight. Typically after meals, when you've had carbohydrate, so things like bread, potatoes, oats, pasta, rice, you would feel very tired, very sluggish, and you would get hungry quite quickly after even what appears to be a big meal. So that starts to indicate that you're producing a lot of insulin, and the blood sugar then will fall again quite quickly. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, very much related to insulin resistance and is a symptom of this metabolic condition. So one should not look at treating PCOS unless you're actually addressing the insulin resistant if you want to have lasting improvements and if you want to resolve the causes of PCOS. And I've personally seen in my own experience that from having polycystic ovaries 1 year to the next year, nothing, because I really addressed the insulin at the time and made sure that I'm not aggravating that condition. So PCOS is very much related to insulin resistance, and one should address the root cause. Fatty liver. People think that fatty liver comes from drinking too much alcohol or perhaps using certain medications, but when we've got this consistently elevated fasting insulin and blood glucose that is not well managed within the optimal range, we see fatty liver. Fatty liver can also be resolved by addressing the insulin resistance. So one should not look at that as, this is something that we can't treat or that can't improve. Sugar cravings. And that is what I really want to get to today. Sugar cravings often related to this unbalanced blood glucose, so roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down. And we can try the mind over matter. You can try to have a very strong will. You can try and promise yourself that you're going to eat healthy going forward and that you're going to choose better meals. But unless you're addressing the sugar cravings, it's going to be very difficult. Unless you're going to address the insulin resistance, it's going to be very difficult to manage and to resolve these sugar cravings. The interesting thing is that the less sugar we eat, the less sugar cravings you will have. And I've seen this with my fasting course participants, that once we improve their protein intake, increase their healthy fat intake, decrease their daily carbohydrate intake overall, and we start to balance things out and eventually start to introduce the fasts, the sugar cravings are a lot less. So there's always hope. There's always opportunity for this to improve. I do recommend quite a few different supplements to help with sugar cravings. Something like chromium the range might or might not be relevant to you, but chromium is something I often look at for sugar cravings. I also like to use alpha lipoic acid if somebody is insulin resistant or if they're diabetic type 1 or type 2 diabetic. So alpha lipoic acid is a good nutrient to help with blood sugar balance. Berberine is newer on the scene in the last few years, but has shown very promising results to help lower overall or average blood glucose, helping to reduce these blood sugar spikes, really supporting the weight loss. So I really like berberine. And then there are other products that have combinations of ingredients, things like cinnamon, fenugreek, curcumin, which is turmeric, gymnema, milk thistle that helps the liver. This is another combination product with gymnema, cinnamon, fenugreek, capsicum, which is like a red pepper, cayenne pepper, and then berberine. So there definitely are options to use in terms of supplements or natural options to help relieve insulin resistance, to help balance blood sugar better, to help with the sugar cravings. But unless you address your diet, unless you radically change the way that you've been eating, if you are somebody who eats a lot of sugar and a lot of carbs, then these products can't undo that. They can help to support, but they can't undo the food that you actually put in your mouth. And that brings me to my final point. You know, for somebody who's got metabolic issues, fasting, insulin problems, insulin resistance, some obesity, some issues with weight gain, fatty liver, all these things that I mentioned. If we start with the right approach, if we clean up the diet, if we remove the sugars and the excess carbs, if we get this person to start doing some exercise, introducing fasts, and really supporting this metabolic health, we can make a big difference in 2 years for somebody who's had chronic issues. So it doesn't take forever. Yes, it's not a quick fix, but the quick fixes all come with their own risks anyway. The thing that is the more long-term, I would say, challenge for these individuals, and I'm one of them, is to change the relationship with carbs and sugar and food. So that becomes a lifelong journey. That becomes something that is more of an internal process. If you've always used food as comfort or numbing, if your go-to food is sugar when you're feeling stressed or upset or bored, then you're going to have to start implementing changes around that. If you want to have or benefit from the lasting changes of introducing fasting and looking at the food that you're eating. So there's definitely sort of these two approaches that should go hand in hand. And because this week we've had these extremely potent planetary movements, or the presence of certain elements in the metaphysical world that have felt so amplified and very intense for many. The theme around death and rebirth, and I've made some videos about that as well. This death and rebirth can be like a doorway into a change of your health, a change of your lifestyle, to not be gripped in that same constraints of this carb addiction, sugar addiction, and not being able to break free from how certain food choices make you feel. So this is really an invitation. It's not a judgment. It's not a criticism of where you are at. It's more an invitation to say it's never too late to change. Fasting and changing what you eat is beneficial at any stage. It doesn't matter how young or old you are. It just takes the first steps, and that's usually just acknowledging where you are at and then getting professional help with that. I do one-on-one consultations, I coach one-on-one fasting, I coach groups over 8 weeks to introduce fasting, and then also like a 3-month support group for fasting participants once they've become familiar with it. So there are so many options. My details are all down below in the description if you want to get in touch. Please let me know where you're at, and I really hope that you find this inspiring, and I really hope you feel encouraged that it's never too late to start. Well done for surviving this crazy week with very intense planets. I know for many of us it has felt like we just wanted to reach for comfort food. Primarily, you're not alone, but fasting or just having a day of healthy eating will help the body to reset, will help you to feel more supported, will get the blood sugar back under control, and usually when that happens, the moods are under control. Take care, and I look forward to having another conversation with you soon.